Hey, this is Nick Milavoy.
And this is Jason Shadrick.
And this is the 100 Guitarists podcast, where every week we are talking about one of the 100 guitar players that we think you should know. Jason, who are we talking about today?
This is a big one. This is the king of Texas boogie. William Gibbons the fourth. I don't know if he's the fourth, but we're talking today about Billy Gibbons.
That's right.
The king of Texas boogie.
That's right.
Nobody boogies like Billy.
That's right. But before we talk about Billy, we want to remind you that we love to hear from all of our listeners. You can get at us by dropping us an email to 100 Guitarists. That's 100 Guitarists at premierguitar.com. Or hit us up by voicemail or text. Nobody's going to answer the line. Don't be afraid about that. You just leave them voicemail at 319-423-9734. And don't forget, give us some likes, some subscribes, all that stuff. Leave us a rating. You can find us here on YouTube. You can find us wherever you find podcasts, Apple, Spotify, all that stuff. Jason, tell us about today's sponsor.
So today's episode is sponsored by Magnatone.
Ooh.
Magnatone. Love
like
Magnatone amps. And specifically, we're going to point out an amp that old Reverend Billy Gibbons had something to do with. It's the Super 59 M80 model. Double EL34s, 45 watts push pull. It's a Class AB amp. AB your favorite type of amp, Nick?
Oh yeah, I would say it is.
I think so.
You look behind me, you see a couple deluxe variations. That's what I got going on there.
Right. So has foot switchable gain stages. It's a British Voice Master volume designed with treble, mid, bass, and presence. A tube buffered effects loop. And you can get it in a 1x12 combo, a 212 combo, or a head with a matching 212 speaker cabinet. So, Nick, 112 or 212?
I'm a 112 person. I'm a 112 player. I love the sound of 212s. I don't want to carry that much gear. I'm going to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I got steps. You can't see. There's some steps over here. They are not 212 steps.
212. I would be a 212 guy, but I'd want vertical. I'm a vertical 212
I like that
guy.
Yeah.
So
I had a vertical 212 cab at one point with a trainer head that I liked. But if I were getting a Magnatone, I would go for the 112, man. I've recorded an album with, I believe it was a Magnatone Twilighter. And man, that amp sounded so good. I've always been a fan of vintage Magnatones for a long time. And the new ones are just so great.
New ones are great.
I really like them. And then every picture you see of Billy Gibbons for years now, what's
Awesome
behind him?
custom Magnatones behind him. It's great. Yeah. Also, check out the Slash model, which we did a little bit at NAMM this past year, the Slash Magnatone. So Magnatone making great things. Thank you so much for the support. But now let's get right down to it, Nick.
That's right.
Billy Gibbons.
Billy Gibbons.
One of the most ubiquitous guitar players in my whole memory of recorded music. I feel like I've just always known about ZZ Top.
Yeah. And for me, I think my advice to anybody who wants to know anything about ZZ Top, I mean, obviously start with the records, but we'll get to that. But 2019 Netflix documentary, That Little Old Band from Texas. You see that, Jason?
Yeah, I think one of the great band documentaries.
Man. To me, that's a classic. I've watched it, I don't know, probably 5 times.
And, poor departed Dusty is in on it. So we got to see some good footage of him. And I just like watching those guys hang around their house.
Yeah.
That was some of my favorite footage of them just hanging out at their house,
There's a lot of footage of them just jamming in that big room. That's awesome. Great movie. So I would say, if you want the history of ZZ Top, you want the history of Billy Gibbons, we're not getting into all that. Go there. Check it out. We can't cover that stuff like they can. And like that documentary does. But that starts early on. They're talking about Billy Gibbons and the Moving Sidewalks, Dusty Hill, Frank Beard playing in the Fake Zombies. That's a good part of the ZZ Top story. And I'm talking about the Zombies from England that they were in the fake version of. If you don't know what I'm talking about, this should pique your interest to go check out that documentary. But let's just vibe on ZZ Top and on Billy Gibbons. Like how great is Billy Gibbons? ZZ
To
Top
me,
Rig Rundown. What can we talk about there, Jason?
ZZ Top Rig Rundown. That was a great one. That was early on in the Rig Rundown days. We've done a couple of them since, at least one, maybe two. And I can't remember how we made the connection, but we got in touch with Elwood. Could have been Keys who got in touch with him.
Elwood, who we should say has become a meme on social media. At the time, he was the tech.
Yep.
But now, Dusty,
Mostly clean
RIP.
shaven.
What's that?
He was mostly clean shaven.
Clean shaven. Okay.
Yep.
Well, he's not anymore.
Not anymore.
And nowadays, he's a meme because he plays a 97 string guitar.
Yeah, right. 27 string bass. So we had gotten in touch with Elwood, or maybe we'd been put in touch with Elwood, maybe through their publicist. It was in Peoria, Illinois.
Okay.
It was a tour they were doing with Lynyrd Skynyrd. And I feel like those two bands...
It's also a great Lynyrd Skynyrd documentary, by the way.
There is. Those two bands have... they've probably... I bet you if you ask them, each one of them, the band they've toured with the most, they'd probably name each other. Because when I first saw ZZ Top live was probably late 90s, definitely late 90s, 98, 99, somewhere. The Rhythmine album was out.
Okay.
And it was ZZ Top and Lynyrd Skynyrd. And
oh, wow. Yeah. Rhythmine is what, 90, that's 1996. 96.
Okay, yeah. No, it was the Triple X
back.
album. The Triple X album
That's
is
99.
what is, yeah, that's the one it was on. They were touring behind. And so anyway, so I remember from that first time just seeing how, like, he was such a master of underplaying.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he could play just a couple of notes and really make it work. And for me at that time, I really had not been fully baptized in the early stuff, in the first 6 records. But when we did the Rig Rundown, met up with Elwood, nice could be, and a couple things stick out about that if you go back and watch it. One is the never-ending Lynyrd Skynyrd snare drum sound check. The almost the whole way through the video.
Yeah.
Almost. There was nothing we could do. And I got to play the fuzzy guitar.
Okay.
I got to play the fuzzy guitar.
Did it feel like it was clean?
It was cool. Yeah, I don't think it was the original.
Was it clean?
Oh yeah. I don't think it was original. I think they probably
they refuzz it for
every couple of tours or whatever. But what struck me were the strings.
Oh.
That was the first time I had played sevens. And it was like you could hold up the guitar and go, and the strings would vibrate. I mean, they were light.
So let me ask you, after you did that, did you restring any of your guitars with light gauge strings?
Didn't even cross my mind.
No.
Didn't even.
No,
cross
I'd be
my
afraid.
Mind.
I don't think I'd get it.
I do see this like trend towards using lighter strings, you know, because maybe it doesn't affect tone, as Rick Beato would say, it doesn't affect tone maybe in the way we thought it might have in the early days. But I am totally cool with 9s and 10s. Like, yeah, I don't have any reason to go heavier or lighter.
I don't agree with that idea that they don't affect tone that much. Like, I think that string gauge does affect tone.
It does, but not in the way I think that is like, oh, if you want to sound like Stevie Ray Vaughan, you have to play 12s.
No.
Like, I think that myth is finally starting to go away.
Yeah. You know? But there is something you get with changing gauges. And for anybody that doesn't know what we're talking about, the story goes, B.B. King plays Billy's guitar. I forget what gauge strings Billy had on there, but B.B. King says, "Hey, nice guitar, but why are you working so hard?" Billy's like, "What do you mean? Why am I working so hard?" It's like, you got heavy gauge strings on there. You need to have light gauge strings. So it turns out B.B. King used 8s, and then Billy got into it and decided to go one even lighter. He's getting custom gauge strings made, going all the way down to 7. So that's what we're talking about here. You know, I play a guitar with 9s on there, and I feel like I'm about to I'm a little bit of a heavier gauge player. 9s feel so light to me. I can't imagine 7s, but I get the idea of where with Billy's sound, I mean, it's tricky. Billy plays with a peso, you know? Like, No? No, is this not true?
He was
Is this a
not,
myth I bought into?
He He was not the evening that I saw him play.
Okay. All right. So
I
there you go. I'm
I
just thinking
did
like.
not see a stash of pesos side stage. I saw just normal guitar picks.
Yeah, because I'm thinking a peso is like that's gonna kill a light gauge string, and maybe that went out the window with the gauge.
It could.
But
I
it's
feel like I wouldn't poo-poo on that idea entirely, but I would think that if you rolled up to a Billy Gibbons gig on any random night, probably not using a peso on the
probably
gig.
using a guitar pick.
Probably using a guitar pick. I would be very surprised if he was.
So that makes more sense to me, and it's just like the ability to play really, because there's a minimum lightness you can hit with a heavy something heavy like some sort of metal pick or peso, but with the regular guitar pick, I could see Billy's tone plus a light guitar pick, light touch. I can see how you could get to some super light gauge strings.
He has, it's very light touch, and I think that benefits the light strings. But then when you hear his tone, I think at the time he was playing through a couple Marshalls when we did that first rig rundown years ago.
Okay.
He had some Marshall stuff in a rack. Huge tone, like the tone you would expect, you know, out of Billy. But then when I go back and listen to those early records, when he's playing Pearly Gates, which is his famous 58, 59 Les Paul, Sunburst Les Paul, you just hear him digging in so hard.
Oh, man, I know.
Like, just nasty and dirty, and, like, it's almost like, it's the type of thing that any kind of real dynamic guitar player does, is like, if you want more distortion, you just hit the string harder.
Yeah.
You know? And Billy was on those early solos, especially when it comes to like the pinch harmonics and stuff that he
maximum control. He just has total control of his sound, of his tone, of his vocabulary, his phrasing, all that stuff. Well, this brings us to something. What's your favorite era of ZZ?
Oh, the first 6 records, and it's not even like I'm not even really interested in anything otherwise.
Interesting.
Because now I think let's say the early era, and then there's like the MTV era, right? Yeah. Because the MTV era is where I was probably my gateway into the ZZ Top cinematic universe. But that brought everybody into the tent. That made them massive stars.
Yeah.
But from a guitar playing perspective, there were cool riffs, incredibly tasty solos on that stuff, but the real, like, dirty Texas boogie is, you got to go back to those first 6 records. Tres Hombres, Fandango, the first record. Like, those to me is like the essential heartbeat of ZZ Top. If that's all they did were those first 6 records, first ballot Hall of Famers. I think
I would say, I would take it a step further. Say even just the first 3. If they only ever recorded the first 3, we'd still be talking about ZZ Top.
Teos. I like that record.
Listen, first 6, like, I'm all in. I'm just saying, like, even if it were only the first 3, it's like they'd be legends.
It'd be hard to lead down Fandango though, man. Nasty Dogs and Funky Kings, Tush, Heard It on the X. See, no, this is just an incorrect opinion. You got to go the first 6. You got to go.
Sure.
Deguelo.
But imagine that they had stopped after Tres Hombres. You're saying they're not legendary?
Not as much, no.
Okay.
Some of their biggest hits were on the second 3 of the first 6 records.
True.
And if we're throwing out the MTV car ride era, then you have to have those first 6.
Okay, so for me, first couple ZZ Top records, whether it's the first 3, first 6, I don't care what we're talking about. It doesn't matter to me. They're all great, and that is some definitive, fundamental stuff. Like, they come out of the gates. First album, Brown Sugar. That's one of my top 3 favorite ZZ Top songs. Probably one of my top 10 favorite guitar songs. Like, I love that song so much. So listen, I'm here for it. I I love the sound. I think that Billy is like his musical personality is intact from the get-go. They have a sound, they have a vibe. It is unique. Like they've synthesized their influences to become the band that they are. I put this out there on social media the other day. What's your favorite era of ZZ Top? Because that probably is, if I'm pressed, my favorite era of ZZ Top, those records. But Eliminator, Afterburner, those records for me are really, really special records. And I think, they really do rival that other stuff for me. It's two totally different things that I can't really like. I can't say one. I can't necessarily say I like one more than the other. I thought that was a pretty common belief. I put it out there on social media. From the responses I got, people don't agree with me.
That's the
and it sounds like you don't agree with me either. So I was a little bit surprised to find this to be the case. I thought that this was the thing, that it's like the early records are amazing, and then they do this awesome thing, get on classic rock radio, get on MTV, they're making giant hits, and they're pop stars now, and those songs are awesome as well. And it's like, I mean, who doesn't want to hear anything off of Eliminator? Name any track off of Eliminator. Those songs rip, but this was not the case. So
ZZ Hagar.
Yeah, okay. I like Van Hagar. Go on.
I like Van Hagar too. But it's that type of vibe where I do like the Van Hagar stuff, but I like the early, Diver Down, Fair Warning, like those Van Halen 2. Those are my favorite Van Halen records.
Yeah.
There's some great tunes, and I view this the same way. There are some great tunes in the MTV era. Strangely enough, Gibbons basically single-handedly wrote all of Eliminator.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of like a Billy thing. It's not really like the band vibe. Okay, so I want to put a pin in that for 1 second, because I just want to. I'm not trying to make a case. I'm not trying to sell anybody on anything. But we got a message from a listener. David Stott wrote. He wrote a message that I feel like speaks to my point. Kind of. Here we go. David says, I think Billy's guitar playing began to transmogrify with Tejas and DeGuello. I don't know if I'm saying that right. And I think on Eliminator, his playing became something else. All the older fans were up in arms about the use of synthesizers, but I think they may have missed the bigger picture. I agree with this, David. Billy's tone, always magnificent and peerless, reached an apogee of syrupy sonic warmth and liquidity, all the more mind-boggling because it was purportedly achieved entirely with a Legend amp, a blisteringly loud unit with a tube preamp, but solid-state power amp. He goes on, the note choices were inspired and unique. Each solo a fully formed statement, a complete story in and of itself, rife with all the glorious Gibbonisms. The pinch harmonics, obviously. The snarling double stops, the molasses-thick tone, serving only to enhance the locomotive rhythms. If anything is missing, and I agree with this too, I'd say there is a lack of his incomparable clean tone solos. Think Fool for Your Stockings, Blue Jean Blues, Cheap Sunglasses, or the second voice, the response in the call and response outro on I'm Bad, I'm Nationwide.
Blue Jean Blues, that's a great
Thank
great
you,
track, yeah.
David. I think that is very clear about what. So I would say that there's something else missing, which is, the band, right? The feel of the band.
Yeah.
So there's also that big thing. But as far as just thinking about Billy Gibbons and his guitar playing, yeah, that clean thing, there's this other stuff that existed on those other albums that doesn't exist on Eliminator. So that's why I feel like it's unfair to compare the two things exactly and say this is better than the other. But here's the other thing, and I think you can agree with me here because of, when we came up, when we probably both got interested in ZZ Top. So I'd always heard that these first couple albums, or the first era of albums, were fantastic. I get into ZZ Top a little bit more seriously. I'd always heard the stuff on MTV, and I'm starting to check out all the other stuff, and I'm listening to these early albums, and I'm thinking, the songs are cool, guitar solos are cool. I hate the way these records sound. That's because we came up in the CD period. Okay. For years, the only versions I wasn't scouring record shops looking for, vinyl pressings of this stuff. So I got CDs of ZZ Top stuff, and I didn't like the way they sounded. Billy, as many people know, redid all the guitar sounds and all the drum sound. They've re-triggered the drums, tried to update the early albums. Okay? So my first encounter with the early albums is these redone versions. Now,
it wasn't hearing them on the radio.
It was hearing them on the radio.
Right.
No,
so that
I
was
heard
mine.
them on the radio.
So like I heard them on the radio. I'm like, okay, this
that I
sounds
could
cool.
listen to again.
Yeah, I remember because I was working in high school. I was working at Best Buy, and late '90s, height of the CD. We had thousands and thousands of CDs. I don't remember that sticking out as much when I first got into it, and then
I was always tuned into sound, and it's funny because I love 80s production values now, but as a teenager and through my 20s, I hated gated reverb. I hated any of that stuff. So these records,
it was rough.
I just didn't put in the time to bond with those in the same way. But despite that, Eliminator that music is meant to exist in that space. Like that was made to sound like that. So that I didn't really have the problem with that because I could see through it. But hearing that production value forced on those earlier records and the playing on those didn't make sense to me.
I think the first CD I got was their greatest hits, which had the correct versions. Those had the correct versions on them, I think.
I thought I had the updated versions.
I don't think so. Because it's funny because I just came across that CD. Recently.
So maybe I was spending time with those, but the
CD individual
six pack was the
garbage.
when they re-released the stuff with the new mixes, and then all the CD reissues had that. So that's just like, I think that's a little bit of a weird thing. Now, I was thinking about this in preparation to talk. I went back and listened to those 6-pack mixes. I'm not going to say, I'm probably not going to go back and listen to them again. You can still find them. You have to track them down on YouTube. But they aren't quite as horrifying as I remembered. I kind of dug them as like, I kind of like it as a curiosity. I don't condone like bands going back and redoing their catalog to like update it, but it's also sort of a fun little curiosity about like what they were thinking about. I mean, I don't think they were doing this for artistic reasons. I don't think there was like a good value to this. It was like, yo, let's get paid. Let's make.
Well, I mean, I like the idea of doing re-records in interesting ways,
but not replacing.
Not replacing sounds. Yeah. I mean, unless there were like really extenuating circumstances, like the Beatles. Like when they did "Free as a Bird" with John's.
Oh, sure, but that's a different thing. Yeah.
That's a different thing. But yeah, I'm with you on the 6-pack. It was a experiment in their history. I can't say I'm glad it exists, but just thankfully, the youth of today will not have to deal with this utter sonic confusion. That they can just pull out their phone, ZZTOP, boom, and they have the correct versions.
To me, it was a big deal when the correct versions came back again. Like, thank God. So anyway,
I'm sure I know people who were like hanging on to their vinyl.
Yeah.
Hanging on to their old vinyl versions because instead of replacing them with CDs, because these were so rough. I mean,
we've talked about the 70s era. We've talked about the 80s. I'm going to talk about one more thing, which is basically the 90s on. Okay. And we keep running into this with a lot of bands. There's a fertile period, and then they come to sort of like their peak, and then after that it's like they keep doing things. But it doesn't always hold the same creative value. So that's my thought on ZZ Top. It's like once we get to the 90s, I'm not as stoked on ZZ Top's music. I would say, would you agree with me on that?
Yeah, but I've seen them. So I've probably seen them a half a dozen times. I saw them at the Crossroads stuff. They've played every Clapton Crossroads thing.
Mm-hmm.
We saw them when we did the Rig Rundown. Saw them Skinnerd. That they know. I do like that they are a band that knows who they are and knows why people listen to them. Like, the La Futura album that came out,
Recorded with Rick
12
Rubin.
years ago. That's the Rick Rubin record, right? Probably not going to see those tracks in a set list when you go see them on tour.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, they know, they kind of know how their late era catalog measures up against everything else. I don't think they're under any kind of things. They're, fine albums, much like AC/DC. Fine albums, but people want to hear the 10 essential songs that every ZZ Top fan loves. And you have to play all 10 of those every night,
Yeah.
I think it would be cool for them to, at some point, have some kind of event or whatever where they dig deeper into their early catalog and play some like Brown Sugar. When was the last time they played that?
I think they did. Have they not played that? I've never seen.
I don't know.
ZZ Top live, actually. Did they not play that?
I would imagine they have so many hits that I would be surprised. I mean,
to me, that's just like if I went to see ZZ Top, that's what I want. I want to hear Brown Sugar probably more than anything.
I'm just gonna pull up a recent set list here. Here we go. Set list. Opening. Let's just go right down a set list. This will be fun. Opening, Got Me Under Pressure. Great opener. Thank you. This is from this past March. So, Got Me Under Pressure. I Thank You. Sam and Dave cover. Right? Classic. Waiting for the Bus into Jesus Just Left Chicago.
One of the best transitions.
First came into my world via Fish. Thanks, Trey. Slip Stitch and Pass. Great live record. Look it up. Next,
Thanks,
Give Me
Trey.
All Your Lovin'. Pearl Necklace. I'm Bad 'Em Nationwide. Oh, I Bite My Tongue. I Gots to Get Paid. That's from that
La
record.
Futura, yeah.
All right. My Head's in Mississippi. 16 Tons. Which it says here on this particular show, on March 10th, he used Jeff Beck's guitar on it.
Oh, wow.
Right? And then here we go. Just Got Paid, Sharp Dressed Man, Legs, Encore. Oh, look at this. Look at us, Nick. Brown Sugar.
Yeah.
Brown Sugar Encore. Tube Snake Boogie and LaGrange. Look at us.
Dude. There it is.
Look at us. They
Brown
did.
Brown Sugar belongs right there. They come
Encore.
out for their encore and they're playing Brown Sugar. I'm freaking out.
You're like at a Taylor Swift concert, ready to go. And I think that, like, I'm just clicking at a couple other set lists. I think that's kind of their.
That's the move.
Here, let's see one. This is from. This is from 2 days ago.
It's one of the first riffs I'll play when I pick up a guitar. That's like my pick up a guitar. If I'm feeling like playing a bluesy riff, I go boom 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 out.
Yeah, like I'm looking at a set list from August. Exact same.
All right.
Exact same. Let's do 2 weeks before that. Yeah. Exact same set list. So at least this year, I don't know if they change it year to year, but man, this might be the year you need to go see ZZ Top, have them play you some Brown Sugar.
Yeah, I should probably. It's unbelievable that I haven't gone. And speaking of which, we got a message from my old bandmate. But we got a message from one of my closest musical collaborators, my friend Johnny DeBlasi. Here's what Johnny says.
I'm just calling so that you are reminded to talk about Afterburner during your ZZ Top session today. I want you to go over how much we listened to it on tour together. And I also want you to talk about how the 6 tones blend in with the synths and the gated reverb on the drum.
Okay. See? So Afterburner, that is a close piece of my musical life here. And I want to speak about how much I have listened to ZZ Top on tour, which is that one time I was on tour. It actually wasn't with Johnny. This was a different tour with a good friend of mine who would do these things called challenges, which is you have to listen to a band's entire discography from the beginning to the end, every album, no bootlegs, but every officially
studio
released
records?
album, including EPs.
Yeah.
It's studio records, or if they were like crucial live albums, like if it's like essential, not like something that happens to be on Apple Music. This is before Apple Music, but like, if there's like an important live album, like, Cheap Trick at Budokan would be a part of the Cheap Trick experience. So we did ZZ Top. It is a long discography. We've done a bunch of these. Oh, and you have to listen above conversational volume. So you're in the van. If you want to, you're challenging how much you love a band.
So does somebody
make it
challenge
through
you
all of
like as a
this?
joke, or challenge it as like we should do this?
No,
we
you
should,
agree.
Are
Like,
we all in on this
yeah,
type
like,
thing? Yeah.
this tour we're
this
doing
tour.
ZZ Top.
Okay, so this is not a one trip. I mean, I guess depends how long your drives are.
No, because it's, I mean, ZZ Top discography.
take you a week.
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head how long it is, but it's long. So it was days of driving that we're listening to ZZ Top. ZZ Top was so good that when we got to the end, we listened to more ZZ Top. We didn't stop listening to ZZ Top at the end. But here's the thing. Here's part of why. This was before La Futura, too. So that album hadn't come out yet. I think it was rumored to be it was like ZZ Top are working on a new album with Rick Rubin. Maybe it'll be better. But so we listened to all the albums, and it's like there's a dip
Between
right,
the
at a certain
eras,
point.
between the first 6 and
Between the eras. You
Afterburner,
get to the-
Eliminator stuff.
Well, we like the Afterburner stuff. We like that era, but then it's like after that, there's a dip, and we get to the end, and we're like, we gotta hear more of the good stuff again. But we liked it that much that we wanted to hear more. But I gotta tell you, as I remember, for whatever reason, I remember we're driving through Indiana, and we're listening to Triple X, and this album is just like nobody's feeling it, and it's just bleak, right? We're driving too long. The songs aren't particular. The songs are bad is really the issue. There might be a good song or two, or a decent song or two on there, but like they're generally just bad. I think like listening back to it, the guitar sounds are kind of cool. There's some curiosity in there, but I probably would never listen to the whole album again by choice. But we get to this song, Made into a Movie. Okay. It's this vast, slow blues ballad. Okay. I love the Melvins. It sounds like the Melvins playing blues with Billy Gibbons leading the way on guitar. Okay. And Elvin Jones on drums. Like, it just doesn't make sense that this song is on this album. And I just want to encourage everyone to go listen to Made into a Movie. Jason, I sent it to you, and I just said, just listen to this. I'm going to talk about Made into a Movie. Had you heard this song before?
Maybe in passing, but it didn't stick out.
Yeah. What'd you think?
No,
Am I
don't think you're-
overselling?
It might be the best song on the record, actually. It's the best song on the record.
It's the best song. But it's the best song like in the 90s. It's not just the best song on the record. It's the best song of ZZ Top in the 90s. Like, where did this song come from? I've never seen anything written about it. Short of talking to Billy Gibbons, I don't know how to find out anything about why this song is so much greater than everything else they did for years.
I'm sure he would
in
love
either
to
direction.
give you his opinion on why you think that was the high point of his recorded career. Have you ever
Yeah.
interviewed him?
But
Neither have I.
I've never interviewed him.
Neither have I.
If I ever interview Billy Gibbons, this is going to be in there. I'm going to ask him about this because I love that song so much, and I have this like formative memory about when I first listened to it. I come back to it every couple years. I just like listen to it a few times to check in on it, and it's like, yep, it's still as good as I remember it being. So
Yes.
with that said, I want to talk about Billy's sound. How do we describe what Billy Gibbons?
I mean,
playing
it's
sounds
changed over the years. I think the early stuff is just like this guitar into amp, crank it all the way up, typical
Yep. I think it's a Tweed Champ on the first record. It's pretty
Les
simple.
Paul through a Champ. I know he went to Marshall's at some point, but it's so raw and dry and dirty, but just the groove that he has, the boogie that he has when you hear LaGrange or
Yeah.
Tube Snake Boogie or even waiting on the bus. I mean, there's just something about that swing that he has that is just it's all about his feel,
right?
You know, his
Anything that he fits in there is part of the Billy
and the
Gibbons
fact
world.
that he can play so relaxed. Like when you think about the solo to, I mean, even the solo to Tush, or even the solo on Rough Boy. I mean,
I love Rough Boy.
he has a supreme, at least as going into the later years, has such an understated style that he wasn't trying to like. I think he was really like hungry, like on those first early records. They're like, we're gonna just smash this and destroy everybody in the way. And I think as he got older, he just realized, I'm just going to play, I'm going to be relaxed, I'm going to play, and I'm going to make every note really, really count. And
yes. And that has its own
yes.
special swagger to
yeah.
it. It's like this.
I don't think
confidence.
his playing, I saw a video of him playing maybe a festival like 6-8 months ago, and it's still there. And he's they have the choreography and stuff going, and and all that, and that's the shtick, and that's all well and good. But it's just his touch is still spot on.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's so lyrical. The stuff that's in there, like his melodies, like I can sing those solos back. They don't feel improvised. They feel they feel.
I do feel like there's probably a healthy amount of improvisation in his creative process, but
sure.
I don't know. I would love to ask him, like those iconic solos that we know. Were those completely improvised takes, or had you either been working on them on your own or on stage? I don't know if they were the type of band that would like play songs live once in a while and then go into the studio record them, or it was just straight, we're going to go record these songs and then go out and play them live, since they were also like blues and riff based, especially the early stuff. Did a lot of those songs come out of just jams that they were having or whatnot. But you just, you got to think. It's the same way like when you think of like Jimmy Page on Stairway to Heaven. There's no way in hell that was improvised. Like he had like,
right.
It's so right
so
and so
iconic.
perfect. Like,
yeah.
Or Bohemian Rhapsody. There's no way that's improvised,
Mm-hmm.
And I put Billy Gibbons up there with those, his solos up there with those, because they're so fit to the song that you've got to think that I think the feeling can be improvised and the interpretation of the solo, but I gotta think, just to give me hope, that he's worked those out a bit before hitting record, So,
well, someday, Billy, if
come
you're
on,
listening,
let's talk
come
about
on
Jimi
the pod.
Hendrix.
We'll do a second Billy Gibbons episode. And
We
we
should do a Jimi Hendrix episode with him. He opened for Jimmy.
We should do a Jimmy. Yeah. All right, Billy. You let us know your schedule.
We'll make it happen.
We're scheduling Jimi Hendrix episode with you.
We're to start with ZZ Top, the first 6 records, and then digest all that first before moving on, so you can hear where all that stuff came from. The stuff at your era.
I think that is probably also my general advice, though I would probably say first 3, jump to the 80s, jump around. But I mean,
Tres Hombres, I would say, if you had to pick one record, Tres Hombres.
That's where I would say to start. Tres Hombres.
So.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. We did it.
I think
Thanks
we did
again to Magnatone for sponsoring the episode. Make sure to go check out the Super 59 M80. And I believe they do guarantee that you will play and sound exactly like Billy Gibbons if you plug into that amp. I feel like
don't tell them we told you that.
They told me to say that. But yeah, get at us. You can email us at 100guitarists@premierguitar.com, or you can drop us a text or a voicemail, 319-423-9734. See ya.
We'll see you next week.